Hey Phobos, sisters, brothers, and others, I'm Jynx, and today you have the, I don't know if you'd call it a pleasure or a curse, of just hearing from me. So, welcome to Sister of the Macabre. Okay, so I will be reading Harper's Truelogy. It is the reason that she doesn't deal with the paranormal, which is fine because you have me for that. This spooktastrophie happened when I was a senior in high school, and this single night was enough to scare me off of all paranormal happenings for the rest of forever. Growing up in a small town meant we were forced to create our own entertainment on the weekends, and on this particular night, that meant ghost hunting in an abandoned town called Grafton. A few friends did this type of thing professionally, and I got invited one night and said yes without actually taking time to realize that ghosts and all things paranormal scare the actual shit out of me. But not having anything better to do, I agreed. The town is what you would expect it to be, straight out of an old Western movie, which is accurate as it was used in the final scene in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We went late at night, because of course we did, and I'm trying my best not to scream and nope the fuck out to no thank youville before we even get into the gate. We start creeping around the outside of some houses when we hear it. The true sound of terror. Moo. She literally titled this moo, it's hilarious. A phantom fucking moo echoes in the night and succeeds in shortening my life and making my heart beat so fast it felt like it was beating out a message in Morse code. The moos keep happening sporadically and somehow did not get any less terrifying. Finally, the person leading the groups talked to the spirit of the woman who ran the school when it was still a town. "Sarah, could you please keep the cow quiet? It's scaring people." Sure enough, the cow did not make a peep for the rest of the night. After we explore the area for a while, we proceed down to the town cemetery. There was one grave in particular that I was drawn to for some reason, and this grave was that of two little girls who had been best friends. They were buried together after the swing set they had been playing on collapsed and killed them both. Oh, my heart. I felt the need to take out my camera and take a picture, and when I looked back, there was a blood-red orb hovering above the grave of the two girls. I didn't know what it was, so I showed one of the group leaders, and I was told that it was a very angry spirit and that I needed to be careful nothing attached itself to me. I was very unsettled the rest of the night and kept feeling like I was being watched. Nope, Nopesville, I'm done. Thank you, bye. The rest of the group proceeded to enter a house that the leader said scared the hell out of him, and I decided I had had quite enough excitement for the night, so I passed in going in. I decided to hang out in the car with the door open while I browsed through the photos I had taken. It's at this time I hear footsteps coming up from the side of the car and stop right by the door. I glanced up thinking it was another member of the group, but I saw nothing. I distinctly heard footsteps coming up. It was dead silent and in the middle of the night, and there was no mistaking what it was. I immediately slammed the door shut and hunkered down in the seat. The final stop of the night was the cemetery of an old mining town. On some nights, it is said you could still see lanterns through the trees leading to the mines, but I didn't see anything on that night. What did happen, however, was worse, in her opinion. We were doing an EVP, and someone in the group, I don't remember who, said, "I don't think we should be here." We only get a few questions in when we all start to feel uneasy. Then the question was asked, "Give us some sign if you don't want us here." What happened, I still can't explain, but it still scares the fuck out of me. The night had been silent that night, and it was a warm summer night with no wind. But after this question was asked, wind picked up and it felt as if it was pushing us towards the exit. At this point, I had had enough, and I ran back to the car and refused to leave for the rest of the night. I never went on any other ghost hunts after that, and I refused to engage in anything paranormal. I have no desire to seek anything out and refuse to listen or watch anything relating to it. So that is why Harper doesn't deal with the paranormal. I know I mentioned that before in our very first Truelogy with our mother, Blade. So now I am actually going to tell you a few of my own stories I know you heard a few of my stories when I did the episode with Blade, but I promised you guys would get my stories, so here they are. I have about 8 or 9 of them to share that I'm going to share today, but they're mostly small. So I used to see the old man who owned my mom's house before she did. He would stop by from time to time to see how we were treating the house, and one day I was outside playing with my dogs and I felt him. Well, I felt someone. So I looked through the sliding glass door to see him just looking at me. I didn't feel he was bad, so I just went about my business and kept playing with my puppers. It was just a really weird moment. I was like, all right, whatever. And I spent the night at my grandma's house, and I know for a fact that it was haunted because this little boy loved to play tricks. My grandma used to play with a Ouija board in that room I was staying in. I'm like, nope, no, thank you. No Ouija boards here. He kept poking at me and laughing and stealing my blankets. Thankfully, he left me alone when I kind of yelled at him, and my sister called me mean for it. So he wasn't a bad spirit or anything, but I got really annoyed, and I was just like, man, leave me alone. Fucking stop. And he was not happy about that. He got upset, but he left me alone, and then my sister was like, that was rude. I'm like, he was messing with me while I'm trying to sleep. What do you expect? So... on to the next one. I used to work at a Dollar Tree in California, and when I'd walk home late as fuck at night alone, because that's smart, right? Sometimes I'd run into things that I did not like. One time I heard a man whisper in my ear. Of course, I look around, there was no one there. And that was the first time I'd ever actually heard a spirit, so I was like, fuck this. Nope, I'm in Nope Town, I'm out. Nope, I can't do this. All he did was say, hey. But it was so clear in my left ear, I was freaked out. I don't know what was going on. I was just terrified. I told him I couldn't help him and to leave me alone, and thankfully he did. Another time I was walking home and I felt this really bad presence following me. I looked around and knew it wasn't physical. It was a spirit of some sort. So I hightailed my ass out of there. Every time I walked by a bush, I'd see a shadow of a marionette. Now, I'm not really afraid of puppets, but you got me fucked up if you think this bitch wasn't fucking scary. I get home freaked out, and my mom, who's a fucking goddess, as you've already figured out, is like, yeah, that can happen. It's just a thing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I knew I was safe in the house, but fuck. I was not happy. See, I don't like dolls. Puppets, I don't really mind too much, but dolls freak me the fuck out, okay? When mom was here, we went to an antique gallery that Harper had told us about, and there was a spirit attached to a doll. I was like, nope. I'm not getting chunky today. Goodbye. I was done. So, there's another one. So when I moved to Texas, I moved into this nice home with a huge backyard. It was nice. It was really great. But I didn't feel anything wrong with the house, so I was like, oh, thank goodness. But that very first night there, I started to feel something in the backyard, and then there was a fucking knock right by my head on the outside of the wall. My wall faced the backyard. So I was like, oh no. So I said fuck that shit and didn't respond. There weren't many nights of knocking after that, but a friend of mine moved in with us for a little bit, and the spirit started giving off an extremely heavy negative energy, and it was so bad that when my friend and I were chilling in my room, and remember, my wall was facing the backyard, so it was right there, he started to suffocate and fainted. I got him back to his room, and he was fine and felt like nothing happened. Needless to say, I saged the house the next day, saged the property, and put a prayer protection over the house so nothing unwanted could enter the grounds again. There was another spirit in the house which didn't show up until a while after we had moved in, and he wasn't much of an issue. He likes football, would turn on the TV to watch it. And he doesn't like it when people fight in the house. I was standing on a chair because I'm so fucking short. One of my literal nicknames is Booster Seat. Shout out, James, I love you. And I was grabbing things out of the cabinet to pack up when my house alarm goes off, but it wasn't armed. So I got off the chair to investigate it, and it stops. Right as it stops, a freaking glass cup fell where my head was, so it kind of saved me from getting hurt. Thanks, bro. So there are 2 guardians in my childhood home. It's my mother's house. They are Native American dolls with spirits in them. The one in the living room only likes mom, and he will tell you that. But the one by the doorway, however, is a very sweet, awesome guy. I hadn't been home in years, and one October I drove in to spend some time with the fam. As a kid, I would talk to Guardian and greet him at the door all the time. I did it again as an adult, and I felt his warmth all over again. A few days later, I was in the kitchen and I heard footsteps behind me, but I knew it was Guardian. He came in to check up on me, see how I was doing, and say hi, so I said hello to him, and he gave me the most welcoming energy. He's always so warm and comforting. Like I said, he's a good dude. Here's a really sweet one. And forgive me if I get a little teary-eyed. This one and the last one I'm going to talk about are very important, and they're very intense. Actually, I have another story to add to this, I just realized. But they're very intense for me. They make me cry in good ways. It's happy tears. I'm visited by people I love and, I miss. So that's what's going on. So I have items from my grandmother on my father's side. She handmade me a baby blanket and a Christmas stocking, and I have them both. I also have my great Nana's golden cross on my mother's side and my grandfather's silver cross on my mother's side, as well as his turquoise ring, his pan flute. So I've got a lot of stuff from him. I put both crosses together, and the energy from them is so nice. It feels so good. I love it. One day I could not stop crying. No matter what I did, I just cried, and I was feeling so bad. Finally, I got it in my head to pick up the blanket and the stocking, and I hugged it. Oh, God. And I felt my grandma hugging me back. I felt her arms around me. I also hugged the crosses, and all of a sudden my tears stopped, and all the pain I was feeling that was making me cry just vanished. In an instant, I went from a mess to being all right, all thanks to the love of my family who were there for me when I needed them most. So that was a pretty intense moment. I am tearing up right now. You can probably hear it in my voice, but I am tearing up right now because thinking about hugs from my family and love from my family. That's, they're deceased and they're no longer physically with us, but to know that they're still with me feels insanely good. Another story kind of like that is just recently when my mom and I were recording her Truelogy. I went on about this. I told you guys a little bit about this before in Mom's Truelogy, that I paused it and my grandfather, her father, visited us, and I just burst into tears. Every time I feel his energy, I burst into tears. I can't help it. It's just what I do. It's such an overwhelming energy, but it's good. It's comforting. It makes me happy. Also makes me cry because I miss my grandfather. But he took a seat next to Mom and just chilled out there for a minute, and we talked, and then he left. But it was very intense. So that's another story to be added on. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the realism. I don't have examples like with my mom does. I do with the next two, but I don't have examples with these. These are just things that personally happened to me and a friend of mine who can say, yeah, he passed out. He was fine afterwards, after I got him away from the area. But that's really all that I have because no one else was there. Harper doesn't deal with that stuff, and she wasn't there. And then my dad doesn't believe anyway. He's been through paranormal experiences himself. One day he had picked me up and we were going over, I think it was Fremont Pass and in Colorado. And all of a sudden we smelled my grandma's chocolate chip cookies. Okay, that's him having a paranormal experience right there, knowing that, she was there. And apparently, I don't remember this, but when Mom told the story about, me saying, hey, there's a bad guy outside, apparently I said it to him too. Multiple times. So, that's all I can do is, that's all I can do is say it. Because I don't have anybody around to really tell me. But I did just yesterday check on what I had said with Dad, because we sat down and had a full-on conversation, which we never get to do anymore. So, this next story gives me goosebumps. This next story freaks me out, and it makes me so sad. Because I kind of hate myself for this, for having the ending to this story that I do, because if I had known better, I could have done something about it, and I didn't know. You know, this was the very first time I've ever experienced something this intense, and I didn't know I could do anything. I didn't even know, you know, what I was feeling, so I will get into that. I will tell you everything I'm talking about now. This is the story of when I saw 4 dead girls, well, women, in high school. It's a bit rough and on the freaky side. When I was in high school, my dad was dating this woman named Amy. Rest in peace, Amy. She has unfortunately passed away. Before getting with my dad, her last boyfriend tried to literally beat her to death in a house just 2 blocks from our own. This was in historic, beautiful Leadville, Colorado. Want to talk about a haunted town? There you go. Look it up. Seriously, you'll find a lot of shit. Anyway, we were talking one day, and I had this overwhelming need to go over and see the house for myself. So I asked her to take me there, and she did. Here's where it gets rough. I stepped 1 foot over the property line of the house, and the other was still on the other side. So half of my body was over the property line, and half of my body wasn't. The half that was completely frozen, and I had such a negative feeling. I looked at the front yard of the house, and I saw these 4 shadows all standing next to each other. I knew nothing about this house except that Amy almost passed away in it. Amy was almost beaten. She didn't tell me anything else. Okay, all I knew was she was almost beaten to death. She got out, her neighbor saw her, and flight for life out of there. That's all I knew. So when I turned to her and asked her who those 4 women were, she looked at me terrified and flabbergasted. She was so confused. She was like, how the fuck could you know about that? And I told her, she's like, they're right there. They're standing right there. I can see them. She couldn't. So she proceeds to tell me that the original owner of the house killed his elderly wife in the house, and he died in the house as well. Since then, any woman living with a male in that house was killed. She would have been the 5th, if not for her neighbor calling the cops. We decided to go to the backyard of the house because there was an alley just beyond the street, which is very common for Leadville. And there was a burned down shed. This badass Amy, because I would not, went into the shed and brought out the only item that actually burned in it. A fucking Bible. I'm not kidding. So I started reading it, and all of a sudden, I feel this insanely intense fear, and I'm like, we gotta get out of here. Like, we're crazy for being here. We need to get the fuck out of here. So we return the Bible and leave. And that's what I'm really upset about, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So I later found out that I can do a thing called feel seeing, where if an emotion is strong enough, I can see it, which is why I saw those 4 girls. I also found out that the fear was not mine, but the old man's. And if I had kept reading, I may have been able to free those women. And I feel absolutely terrible knowing that I could have done something for them, but didn't know what was going on at the time. I do plan to go back to see if there's something I can do. I'd like to bring my mom because she's a hell of a lot more powerful than me. And if you want to talk about a bad bitch when she gets real, she gets real. So that story brings tears to my eyes and goosebumps to my skin just because I could have done something. I didn't know I could have. I didn't know what I was feeling. But I could have done something. That is really hard for me. So my mother, brother, and I are allegedly, and I say allegedly because it's in our genealogy book, but mom thinks that grandpa was wrong. So I say my brother, mother, and I are allegedly descendants of the Comanche chief 10 Bears. He's actually really awesome. He signed the Medicine Lodge Treaty. Like, he's a really awesome, great dude. So my mother and I had decided to take a trip to Fort Sill where he was buried to go and say hi to him. That's also where the treaty was signed. We had a hell of a time finding him, but once we did, we were filled with a comforting warmth. It was overwhelming. My mom burst into tears immediately, which is saying something because she doesn't cry. She doesn't cry easily at all. It took a bit longer for me because I keep a lot of protection on me, and I have a shield surrounding me at all times, and it's always very, very thick because I do deal with the paranormal, but I don't like to, and I don't want to deal with it as much as I have, but I'm meant to. Obviously, if I'm an empath, it's something I've got to do. So I keep a very thick shield on me, and I don't let it down. But once I was able to feel him, after putting my left hand, because that absorbs energy, right gives, left takes. After I put my left hand on the very center of his tombstone, I started to feel him, and I burst into tears as well, and we just sat there enjoying his company for a while. So my mom eventually asked me if I was ready to go, and I said no. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't ready to go. But I remembered when I first got to the cemetery, I had taken off my grandfather's ring. Now, I wore that for protection because, like I said, I always carry a lot of protection on me, and my grandfather's ring is very good for that. But I had taken it off because I needed to. I don't know why, but I needed to. I just felt like I needed to. And so when she asked me if I was ready to go, I was like, no. And I immediately thought of the ring. So I put my grandfather's ring on the headstone in the very center where I had my hand to feel 10 bears so my grandpa could join us, and he did. And sorry, I'm getting a little teared up here. He said thank you, and so we all got to, spend some time together. I can't hear spirits, but my mom can. That's how I know that grandpa said thank you. Then when grandpa joined, obviously, I cried even more, like I'm doing now. I could feel them both with me, and it was an amazing experience, and I will definitely do that again. Just having that energy and everything was really nice. And then when I had asked if I could leave him a lucky penny, because I'd seen that all over the place, and the first time I'd seen a lucky penny, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a penny from my birth year, thinking, I'm going to give this to 10 bears. I had 10 bears in mind when I pulled it out of my pocket. So I'm like, all right, well, that was the one I'm meant to give him. So I asked him, can I give you a lucky penny? And he said that'd be very kind of you. And so I placed the penny where the ring was, and I have the ring. I took the ring back, obviously. I'm not going to leave that because someone will steal it. But I did leave him a lucky penny just, to remember me by. And to say thank you for the energy, and to, say that I had a great time just visiting with him, because it was intense. It was very intense. Usually with family, you'll feel like the warmth. Or people that are close to you spiritually, you'll feel that kind of warmth. If they're not close to you spiritually, you'll feel cold. So I'm not entirely sure if we are or if we aren't. I'm not going to say we are or we aren't, because I don't know. Thank you, 10 bears. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, everybody, for that experience, because that was very intense, but it was beautiful, and I loved it. So, yeah. Those are our Truelogies. If you want to send us your own Truelogy, send us an email at sistersofthemacabrepodcast@gmail.com. If it's paranormal, write paranormal Truelogy. If it's not, just write Truelogy, and we'll be good to go. We will make sure to get those read. Paranormal ones will just be me, obviously, because you found out this episode why Harper doesn't deal with that shit. So, if you want to find us on Facebook, it's Sisters of the Macabre Podcast, Instagram at SOTM Podcast 1, and Twitter at Macabre Sisters 1. Thank you guys. We love you so much, and we can't wait to see you for the next episode. Bye!